Could you open the door?
What do you want?
You're in trouble. Somebody went inside.
Dani would never allow a strange man into her home.
I'm trying to help you. As I've always believed, there's nothing that can't be explained.
The movie begins in a peaceful countryside setting, where Dani Odello, the wife of psychiatrist Ted Timmis, is in the midst of renovating their recently purchased country house. While working, Dani calls Ted to let him know she plans to stay overnight at the house by herself, to which he agrees. Afterward, she leaves a voicemail for her twin sister, Darcy Odello, cryptically stating, they are connected. Later that night, Dani steps outside to retrieve her phone, leaving the front door open. While searching near her car, she hears a distant noise, but upon investigating, finds no one. Returning to the house, she prepares to leave, but is startled by the sound of a doorknob rattling from outside. Cautiously, Dani slides open the peephole and is confronted by a man with a prosthetic eye lens, urgently pleading for her to open the door, claiming she's in danger. When the man confirms that Dr. Ted is working night shift, Dani realizes his name is Olenbull, a former patient of Ted's. Olen then warns her that someone has broken into the house. Fearing for her safety, Dani threatens to call the police. To her surprise, Olen encourages her to do so, insisting he's concerned for her well-being. Reluctantly, Dani begins to trust him and asks what he plans to do once she opens the door. Olen reassures her that he will search the house for the intruder and leave if nothing is found. Just as Dani approaches to unlock the door, the scene abruptly cuts off. It is later revealed that Dani was brutally murdered that night, though the identity of her killer remains unknown for now. The next scene shifts to a psychiatric hospital, where a patient named Declan is shown sketching one of his drawings depicting Olen. Suddenly, he hears a menacing growl from outside his room. Trembling, Declan cautiously opens the door, but what he sees leaves him paralyzed with fear, forcing him to hide under the bed. After some time, he musters the courage to venture into a nearby room, where he stumbles upon a blood-stained prosthetic eye lens, belonging to Olen, who is believed to be Dani's convicted murderer. 1 year later, Dani's twin sister, Darcy Odello, a blind clairvoyant with psychometric abilities, is visited by Ted at her Cabinet of Curiosities shop in Cork. Darcy's shop specializes in selling cursed and haunted novelty items. During their conversation, Darcy mentions one particular item, a call bell, which she explains is haunted by the ghost of a bellhop who died in a local hotel and is said to kill anyone who rings it. Skeptical, Ted, being a doctor, dismisses the claim and challenges her to ring the bell. Darcy refuses, explaining that it has already killed 2 people. Ted then hands her Olenbull's prosthetic eye lens, revealing that it was found in Declan's room during the cleaning of his belongings. Curious, Ted asks why she would want something from a dead man. Darcy explains that she wishes to use her psychometric abilities to understand what was going through Olen's mind at the time of his death, whether he felt any remorse or was consumed by anger. As Ted gets ready to leave, Darcy invites him over, mentioning that next week marks the 1-year anniversary of Dani's death, and she feels the need to talk about her. In response, Ted suggests that instead, Darcy should visit his countryside house, where he now lives with his new girlfriend, Yana, a pharmaceutical representative. Surprised by this revelation, Darcy hesitates but eventually agrees. Ted then departs. Later that evening after work, Darcy uses her psychometric powers to relive through Olen's prosthetic eye lens and unravel the last moment of Olen's life before his murder. Through series of visions, Dani sees Olen visiting her sister that evening, and a mysterious masked man. This finding makes Darcy cry in pain, and in fit of anger she storms into her curiosities shop. She then walks near a wooden trunk sobbing in pain, and camera shifts through some of the cursed items and the scene cuts off. In the following scene, Ted is getting ready to leave for his night shift, when Yana shows him his late wife Dani's old camera, asking him to look at the photos she recently took. At first, Ted doesn't notice anything unusual, but then he spots Dani's face in one of the pictures. He casually remarks that, since it's Dani's camera, it's not surprising her photos would be on it. However, Yana tells him she took the pictures just 2 nights ago. Ted brushes it off, suggesting it could be a double exposure. Yana then shares something more unsettling. Last night, before going to bed, she saw Dani in the house. Ted dismisses her concerns, saying he deals with crazy stories all night at work and just wants peace at home. As they talk, Yana shows Ted a locked wooden trunk that Darcy had sent over while he was asleep. Just then, Yana spots an unexpected guest, Darcy, standing outside the house. Ted invites Darcy inside and introduces her to Yana. Darcy explains that she made the visit as promised to be with Ted on the anniversary of Dani's death. Both Ted and Yana seem uneasy with Darcy's unannounced visit. Ted, pressed for time, mentions he needs to leave for work, as the hospital is short-staffed and his team is counting on him. Yana also mentions she has plans in the city, and Ted offers to drop her off on his way to work. However, Darcy insists she's already there and would like to stay overnight. After a moment of hesitation, Ted reluctantly agrees. Darcy then opens the trunk, revealing an object that once belonged to their mother. Seeing this, Yana excuses herself, saying she'll find extra blankets for Darcy. Meanwhile, Ted, looking confused, asks if Darcy wants him to keep whatever is inside the trunk. Darcy reassures him, saying it would be meaningful to her if Ted kept it, to which he awkwardly agrees. Meanwhile, Yana returns, and Ted reassures her that they can dispose of the trunk the following morning after Darcy leaves. With that settled, Ted heads off for his night shift at the hospital, leaving Darcy alone with Yana. Upon arriving at the hospital, Ted reviews the case file of deceased Declan and comes across a series of unsettling sketches. The drawings depict a creature viciously attacking someone. However, among all the sketches, one in particular catches Ted's attention, leaving him deeply unsettled. Meanwhile, as Yana prepares to leave the house, she notices that the wooden crate is open and asks Darcy why she took the object out. Darcy, surprised, replies that she didn't touch it. The object is revealed to be a strange, life-sized wooden mannequin. Yana tries to leave but is unable to when her car keys mysteriously disappear. After searching the keys for a while, but with no luck, she is forced to stay with Darcy. Resigned to the situation, Yana prepares dinner for Darcy, and the two sit down to talk, with the eerie wooden mannequin nearby. During their conversation, Darcy reveals that she makes a living by reading objects, in addition to running the antique store. She explains that by touching personal objects, especially those in close contact with the skin like rings or watches, she can unlock the history and emotions tied to them. On the other hand, Yana admits that she dislikes being alone in the house when Ted is working, fearing that another one of Ted's patients might show up unexpectedly, and she could meet the same tragic fate as Dani, Darcy's sister. Darcy reassures her by saying that Dani would never have allowed a strange man into her home in the middle of the night, and she firmly states that Olin Bull did not kill her sister. The scene then transitions to a flashback of the night Olin visited Dani. Contrary to what was believed, Dani never opened the door. Olin, concerned for her safety, asked her to stay near the door while he went into town to alert the police. After Olin leaves, Dani retreats into her tent with her camera. As she reviews the photos, she is horrified to discover the image of a masked man in one of them, the same masked man which Darcy has seen in her vision. Terrified, she opens the tent to check her surroundings, but the masked man suddenly appears right in front of her. Paralyzed with fear, Dani is unable to escape, and in the next scene, we see that the man has brutally murdered her. Yana then asks, if Olin didn't kill your sister, then who did? Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Ted, who is speaking with Ivan, an orderly at his psychiatric facility. Ivan casually mentions that Ted never told him his late wife had a blind twin. Ted, surprised, asks how Ivan knows that. Ivan explains that he was in town recently and wandered into a small antique shop, where he saw a woman who looked remarkably like Dani sitting inside. Just as they are talking, Ted receives a call from Yana, who tells him she's stuck at the house because she can't find her car keys. She adds that Darcy has been saying some strange things, claiming to be a psychic. Yana explains that Darcy took out Olin's prosthetic eye and revealed that Olin wasn't the one who killed Dani. Instead, she believes the murderer was Ivan, the orderly. Ted is shocked by this revelation and tries to reassure Yana, insisting that Darcy isn't well. He advises Yana to go to bed, lock the door, and assures her that he will make some calls to see if he can leave work early. After the call ends, Yana is startled when she notices the wooden figure has mysteriously moved positions. In her panic, she drops her phone from the upstairs landing, breaking it. But when she looks back, the mannequin appears to have returned to its original position. Later, while Darcy is asleep on the couch, Yana approaches the wooden figure. Upon closer inspection, it resembles exactly like the sketch, which Ted had seen earlier while reviewing Declan's case file. As she retrieves her phone, she notices 5 small holes in the mannequin's head. Curious and uneasy, Yana begins examining the contents of the holes. She extracts locks of hair from one of the holes. From the other hole, she extracts photographs of Dani and Darcy followed by another photograph from a third hole. When she reaches the 4th hole, she finds a tooth which she hurriedly puts back. Finally, from the 5th hole, she pulls out a vial of blood encased in a small tube. At that moment, Darcy suddenly wakes up and sternly orders Yana to return everything to the mannequin. Frightened, Yana quickly puts everything back, bids Darcy goodnight, and leaves the room. After Yana leaves, Darcy positions herself in front of the wooden mannequin, mimicking its pose. The scene then fades to black. Later that night, when Yana comes back out, she finds Darcy still asleep in the exact same position. Yana heads to the washroom, but suddenly the lights flicker off, only to come back on moments later. Feeling uneasy, she returns to her room and begins watching videos from Dani's camera. The footage shows Dani inside a tent with Ted, before their newly purchased house was furnished. Still unsettled, Yana checks the door, turns off the lights, and restarts the video. This time, she is horrified to see a ghostly image of Dani instead of Ted in the footage. Dani's ghost appears in the room, urging Yana to run. Panicking, Yana quickly turns on the lights, but finds no one there. Terrified, she rushes downstairs where Darcy is sleeping. Hearing footsteps approaching her, she grabs a knife in self-defense. Desperate, she tries to wake Darcy, but gets no response. Just then, she hears the trunk door slam shut on its own. Frightened, Yana cautiously approaches the trunk, and when she opens it, she discovers her missing car keys inside the trunk. As she absorbs what she believes to be Dani's apparition moving through the house, Yana's panic intensifies. Seizing the moment, she flees, but as soon as she steps outside, the lights in the house go out. In the darkness, she sees Dani's ghost emerging, which prompts her to scramble into the car and drive away as quickly as possible. After some time, Ted returns to the house and notices the wooden mannequin now sitting in a chair. Concerned, he goes upstairs and finds Yana missing from her bedroom. In the corner of the house, he spots Darcy sitting in an unusual position. Ted asks her about Yana, mentioning that she's not answering her phone. Darcy coldly replies that Dani's ghost frightened Yana away. Darcy then confronts Ted, revealing that she knows the truth: he was responsible for Dani's murder. She admits that she initially killed Olin in an attempt to avenge her sister, believing he was the killer. But after performing a psychometric reading on Olin's glass eye, she discovered his innocence. Instead, it was Ted who orchestrated Dani's murder, with the help of Ivan, a brutish orderly from the psychiatric facility. With bitterness in her voice, Darcy accuses Ted of cowardice, saying he could have simply told Dani that he no longer loved her and had fallen for someone else. While it would have broken Dani's heart, she would have eventually moved on. But instead, Ted had Ivan come to the house to murder Dani. In a flashback, we see Ivan questioning Ted, asking why he doesn't just divorce Dani. Ted explains that Dani is deeply in love with him and would never be able to move on. He further adds that if Dani discovered his relationship with Yana, they would lose the house, something Ted had poured all his resources into and couldn't afford to give up. Ted then instructs Ivan to kill Dani, assuring him that it should be quick and painless while she's inside her tent. Meanwhile, Olin overheard discussions between Ted and Ivan regarding the plan to kill Dani, and upon his planned release from the hospital, he arrived at the house that fateful evening to warn Dani. Darcy tells Ted she had originally planned to kill him but now thinks it will be worse to expose him. She vows to ensure that he loses everything, including his job, Yana, and the house as well. Ted, in a desperate attempt to prove his innocence, tells Darcy that he'll meet with Peter, the investigator who handled Dani's case, and have Peter call her to clarify the evidence. Darcy, however, demands that Ted call Peter right now and confess to what he's done. She also insists that he call Ivan and send him to the house so she can kill him herself. Ted, visibly tense, claims that he doesn't have Peter's number with him. He offers to leave his phone behind, saying he'll call Peter from his office and ask him to contact her directly. Ted urges Darcy to be ready for the investigator's call, subtly setting the stage for a more sinister plan aimed at her. Ted returns to his office at the hospital, and after some time, the phone rings back at the house. Believing it to be Peter calling as promised, Darcy gets up to answer. However, it is revealed that Ted is the one calling from the hospital. When Darcy had threatened to expose him earlier, Ted had discreetly removed the cover from a trapdoor, near where the phone was placed. Unaware of the hidden danger, Darcy hurries to pick up the phone and tragically falls through the open trapdoor, landing on the stone floor below. Meanwhile, Ted confronts Ivan, informing him that they now have a serious problem to deal with. At Ted's instruction, Ivan arrives at the house to seal Darcy's fate. Upon entering, he notices that the wooden mannequin is now gazing upwards. As he ventures further inside, he discovers Darcy lying lifeless on the floor, taking her last breath. Ivan calls Ted to confirm that everything has gone according to plan. Confident, he tells Darcy her end is near. But with her last bit of strength, Darcy raises her hand and whispers, "We are connected." As Ivan prepares to leave, he hears the sound of a camera snapping photos in Yana's room. Curious, he investigates and finds the camera, its broken screen displaying a blurry face. While examining it, eerie screeches echo through the house. Alarmed, Ivan quietly heads downstairs, only to realize the wooden mannequin is no longer where it was. To his terror, the figure now stands in the dark corner of the room, seemingly watching him. Focusing on the mannequin, Ivan watches in horror as it begins to move. Panicking, he runs upstairs, but the mannequin, now animated by supernatural forces, stalks and brutally attacks him. Darcy, using her remaining strength, has brought the figure to life through some kind of spell, exacting her final revenge. As this unfolds, Darcy sees Dani's ghost watching from the trapdoor, smiling down at her. With Dani's presence, Darcy succumbs to her wounds, and the wooden figure falls lifeless once again. Sometime later, Ivan, having survived the attack, is confined to the psychiatric hospital under Ted's supervision. Traumatized, Ivan had previously told the hospital staff that a wooden figure had come to life and attacked him, leaving him in a state of terror. However, Ted dismisses Ivan's claims, revealing that he had the wooden figure dragged outside the house and burned, noting that it showed no signs of resistance or suffering. To ensure Ivan never reveals the truth about Dani's murder, Ted orchestrates his silence by releasing a violent cannibal patient from the hospital. The cannibal kills Ivan, securing Ted's secret. Ted returns to the country house, now living alone after Yana ended their relationship, unsettled by his cold indifference to both Dani's and Darcy's deaths in the house. On the doorstep, he finds a small package from Darcy's cabinet of curiosities. Inside, he discovers the call bell that Darcy had once shown him, warning that it was haunted by the spirit of a bellhop who died in a local hotel, killing anyone who rings it. In a show of defiance, Ted rings the bell and waits, observing his surroundings. When nothing happens, he dismisses the story as another of Darcy's fabrications and begins to relax. Unbeknownst to him, the bellhop's ghost silently appears behind him, not looking happy, and the movie ends.